In today's video, we're going to take a look at Saturn in the second house, its karmic difficulties, lessons, and ways of integrating it. Let's dive in. My name is Anastasia. I'm a traditional Western astrologer specializing in natal, relationship, and predictive readings. I'm a tropical astrologer working in whole sign house system. If you enjoy my work, please take a few seconds of your time to show your support by leaving me a like, a comment, subscribing, and pressing the notification bell. Watch more of my videos. That's how YouTube knows to send more audience my way, helps me grow. You can also say thank you by buying me a tea or a coffee, a croissant, any other kind of token of appreciation. Thank you, and thank you for being here. Before we dive in, if you have questions about your natal chart, you want to understand why your soul came here, you have questions about love, relationships, or your year coming up, you can book a reading on my website. I do natal relationship predictive readings. I can also help you figure out the best place for you in this big, round, spherical world that we're in, as well as help you pick a date for your wedding, your business, or anything else. All of that is at anastasiadoesastrology.com, as well as a variety of my creations, such as my print products. There is 2025 astrological planner. There are notebooks for all the zodiac signs. And in this video specifically, I'd like to highlight my most financially stable candle, the candle that can help you create abundance in your life, manifest your desires, and increase the numbers of your bank account. And that is Jupiter in Taurus. Jupiter in Taurus is very stable, very essential as well. It can help you not just improve your finances, but also connect with yourself, which is the main point of this video, and Saturn in the second house, which we're going to find out in a second. But it is beautiful because it was created while Venus was also in Taurus, so it has the ruler of the sign co-present with Jupiter, and can increase your optimism, your confidence, your wisdom, help you make solid decisions and rely on your knowledge to make tangible choice. Especially recommend this for anyone born with their Jupiter in Gemini or Virgo, signs of detriment, or if your Jupiter is in Capricorn, sign of its fall. If your Jupiter is retrograde, if it's placed in the 6th, 8th, or 12th houses, this is the candle for you. Thank you for listening. So we're talking about Saturn in the second house. I like to start these videos by talking about Saturn in general. I am using the book, Liz Green's book called Saturn, A New Look at an Old Devil, as the foundation of this video series. So I'd like to reference it to her. If you'd like to look, if you'd like to learn more, check out that book and read more about Saturn. Saturn is often misunderstood. We hear a lot of negative connotations when it comes to Saturn. We hear that it's the planet of like stops and restrictions and delays and hard labors, and all it does is creates pain and frustration in our life, right? Like Saturn is often considered, even astrologically, it is called the greater malefic. So we have a lesser malefic, which is Mars, which is the experience of having a fight with someone, right? Versus Saturn is the experience of getting sick, dealing with a chronic illness, or not getting the job that you want, getting fired, getting laid off. It represents more kind of negative terms of restriction and hardship. However, as you know, perhaps my opinion of Saturn is here to help us grow through those difficult experiences. Saturn is here to remind us that we have to keep our feet on the ground and we have to keep our eyes on the prize. And that sometimes there is red light, so you can let cars go by so you don't get hit by one of those cars. Saturn is the planet of boundaries, and you need kind of strong boundaries, and they're quite important, and Saturn can protect you from a lot, especially if you heed his warning and his lesson. And I'd like to read the quote from Liz Green's book that I have been reading in videos of these series, and that is, Saturn symbolizes a psychic process as well as a quality of or a kind of experience. Let's do this again. Saturn symbolizes a psychic process as well as a quality or a kind of experience. He is not merely a representative of pain, restriction, and discipline. He's also a symbol of a psychic process natural to all human beings, by which the individual may utilize the experiences of pain, restriction, and discipline as a means for greater consciousness and fulfillment. Saturn is connected with the educational value of pain and with the difference between external values, those which we acquire from others, and internal values, those which we have worked to discover within ourselves. So he shapes us. He pushes us, he squeezes us, and sometimes it comes through difficulty. And a lot of times, as I can confirm, I'm sure many of you can confirm, you grow more through difficulty. You learn more. Your boundaries get stronger. You will become stronger. Your personality becomes more disciplined and structured, right? And kind of success finds you, or inner peace may find you when you have done a lot of inner work. So let's talk about Saturn in the second house. First of all, second house, what is it? Generally, it's considered to be the house of money and values. And so when we think about money, it's finances, and it can also tell us how an individual is most likely going to make the money. It can tell us how well an individual is suited to a work life, a professional life, right? Like it can tell you what your capabilities of earning are. A lot of times, if you look at the sign on the cusp of the second house, you can tell just by looking at the sign. And then if you add planets into the mix, you can be like, okay, if somebody has Libra in their second house, maybe they're making money through creative or social enterprises. They make money through partnering up with others and coming up with some kind of synthesis of their two different opposing viewpoints. So it's the house of resources, personal resources, the house of acquiring things and possessions. And then if you go under it all, right, if you think of things we acquire, a lot of times we get things that symbolize something for us, right? So it's not just about buying a motorcycle, let's say, or buying a boat. It's about what that means. So a lot of times underneath it all, the second house also represents our values and our priorities, and also what makes us feel secure. So somebody might buy a motorcycle because it gives them freedom, right? Someone might buy a boat because it gives them a chance to hang out with their friends, right? It's very personal. Second house is deeply, deeply personal, and it's not just about money. It's also about what we prioritize in life. For example, if you are, let's say you are a Scorpio rising and your second house is Sagittarius, with Sagittarius there, maybe you have Saturn there too, but just without looking at the planets, with just Sagittarius there, you may prioritize education more. You may prioritize travel more, connecting with foreigners, expanding your worldview. Spirituality might be so much more important to you. And many Scorpio risings are very kind of interested in astrology, very spiritual, very open to learning about the world outside of kind of things we can touch. And so the values represented by the second house is often not just those we can touch. It's also things that maybe we can't touch, right? It's more spiritual possessions we have, our willpower, our strength, our determination, our resilience becomes one of the values of the second house. And that is ultimately, jumping ahead, is what Saturn in the second house is here to teach you. It's here to teach you to not rely on outside possessions, but instead lean into things that cannot be destroyed, cannot be taken away from you, cannot disappear with age. So Saturn in the second house oftentimes creates people who are very financially savvy. They can be thrifty and pretty cautious about investments. They can be someone who maybe initially in life struggles financially, but then as they get older, money comes in slowly and steadily, so they can build their wealth quite slowly and surely. It's usually also a sign that if you have Saturn in the second house, financial wealth and stability is really, really important to you. A lot of times we think of Saturn in the second house as just someone who wants to sort of acquire possessions, right? Somebody who is very kind of focused on material possessions and having enough. But it's more than that. I think it's oftentimes, if you look at someone with Saturn in the second house and you look at their childhood, you may see that the person grew up lacking the luxuries, and sometimes not even lacking the luxuries, but even necessities of life. They may have grown up with parents that have constantly told them that they can't afford this, that this is too expensive. So the child grows up understanding that there is something missing. And then as they get older, they will kind of constantly try to fill the gap, right? And they may become this sort of self-made man working really hard, lifting themselves from dirt up and creating kind of financial success for themselves. And then underneath that motivating factor, a lot of time, like there's like a fear of poverty, and there's a fear of like not having enough, a fear of maybe it reminds them of like their friends getting things that they couldn't get, or some other sort of early childhood experiences. However, if you just try to fill the void with material possessions, you get a car, you get a house, you get a pool, you get a lot of money in the bank account. Oftentimes with Saturn in the second house, there's still, underneath it all, the fear still remains. There might be a sense that you're still afraid of losing it, right? And so you can't sometimes fully enjoy it because you're afraid that the recession comes and your money will lose its value, or somebody breaks into your house, or somebody steals your car. So oftentimes there is that kind of fear, and sometimes the person may act out of fear and sort of attract those bad experiences because they are showing it to the world. That's the thoughts that they have. Of course, once again, the sense of trying to fill the void and trying to fill the lack by just acquiring material possessions. And a lot of times people with Saturn in the second house may sort of create security through possessions that society deems stable and secure. So they might kind of learn all about real estate or learn all about stocks and market and just try to check off certain boxes that society calls stability and security, while it's really not about that. It's not about fulfilling someone else's expectations or collecting things that other people deem sources of stability and security. Another manifestation of Saturn in the second house might be someone who never lacked financially when they were young, but they lacked a sense of validation or worthiness, because maybe their parents never validated them or kind of acknowledged their inner value, right? They may have also had parents who were like really, really focused on financial stability and financial gains and didn't encourage the kid to express their inner sort of sense of self. And so a lot of times this can also create a person that misplaces that sense of self-worth and places it on possessions and on resources. And it could be someone who maybe leans heavily on other people and expects other people to support them, while in the end, like, not valuing themselves and feeling like they can't stand on their own 2 feet potentially. Or maybe, once again, there's like quite a few manifestations of this placement. Sometimes you meet people with Saturn in the second house and they may be just like very like go-getters, but then at other times they may kind of expect other people to take care of them. And of course, like underneath it all, there is the same fear, right? There is the same fear. There is a desire for something to fulfill their lack, their gap of sort of security, and then an inability to use that. Like, once again, if you're someone who is self-made and you've acquired a lot, you still sort of have this fear of losing it. Versus if somebody is relying on other people to take care of them, they're also depending on other people to sort of fulfill them and tell them who they are and make them feel secure, and they maybe don't trust themselves to be financially independent and financially secure. So Saturn, of course, teaches you to look at how you evaluate yourself and find values in more spiritual pursuits. And then just one more manifestation of this placement could be someone who almost rejects all of the material things and says that life is more than money. Life is more than having expensive things. And so oftentimes people who believe that, they almost don't accept their own desire for things. They almost forbid themselves to want for things. And so they end up criticizing those around them that possess expensive things and judging them and being this very Saturnian harsh critic of those people. And so once again, it's about projecting, right? It's about projecting things that you perhaps want, but you don't admit it to yourself, and then you criticize other people for having it. And so the goal is to bring Saturn from the negative manifestation, dark manifestation, into more consciousness, and start by acknowledging the loss and limitations you have been through, and acknowledging what things you want represent to you, right? Sometimes we think we want money, but what we really want is stability and security. And so learning to accept things for what they are, learning to see the strength of Saturn, which oftentimes conscious Saturn can bring strength, self-sustenance, resilience, perseverance, right? You've been through a lot, and you've learned perhaps that you can survive no matter how hard things are, and that you can perhaps feed yourself even if things are difficult. And then learning to place value on things that are not material, because material things can always be taken away from us. Your bank account can be taken away from you no matter how many zeros you have there. It may be not fulfilling. Your home, even if you're investing a lot into your appearance, into your look, you will get older one day. And so learning to build and focus on more spiritual and inner strengths and values can help you find more satisfaction in life, because you can't fill a lack of love and a lack of acceptance with expensive clothes or expensive cars. It's a lot more about seeing the universe for what it is, seeing yourself as part of the universe, connecting with the energy around you, building your spiritual values, and building parts of yourself, like your soul, that is eternal and everlasting. Please share what you think. If you have anything to add, if you want to share your experience, what is it like for you to have Saturn in the second house? Perhaps it's very different, but still follows the similar theme of being afraid or struggling to enjoy the possessions you have. Leave that down below. And if you're looking for more guidance, visit anastasiadoesastrology.com. Check out many of my creations. Like I said, Jupiter in Taurus can help you create material stability, but it can also be really good for just slowing down and enjoying life as it is without trying to make it something it is not. All of that is at anastasiadoesastrology.com. And thank you for being here. As always, I appreciate every single one of you. If you have any other video ideas, leave them down below, and I'll see you in the next one.